Hey guys, Izzy, just wanted to jump on and just record a video as to how I sort of break down market structure and look for entries. I'll be looking at AU today and just starting off on the daily time frame. So what we can sort of see from the most recent price action is we had this high. This came down and broke this previous higher low, which if we had respected, we would have seen something like this and we would have remained bullish. However, that did not happen. And as of here, we've actually turned bearish. So we can see that we've put in a lower low and we're currently just sort of in this corrective pullback until we tap into maybe one of these supply zones, maybe these two or one of the extremes, before we continue to make a new lower low if this bearish trend is to maintain. All the while, we would be building up liquidity through here as well. So that would be liquidity to be swept on the way back down. We could see maybe a potential reaction from here, but this is quite a long time away. If you have a look at this, this is a zone of 280 pips. When we're trying to catch 20 to 30 pips a day, this is a month's worth of movement. So anyway, let's drill down. So we don't really need any of these supply zones. We're not going to be looking at making swing moves here. If we look at the 4 hour, which is where I sort of start to predict, or not predict, forecast market direction, you can see that this is the 4 hourly high. It's also the daily high. And this is the 4 hourly low, which we have started to see some sort of pullback from. Inside this gray zone here, we drop down to a 15 minute, I think it was. And we scroll across. We can see this range created demand here, which broke this previous supply zone. So this is quite a significant area that I was looking at. It's also had a lot of liquidity built up just over it. So we've now tapped into this and we've just started to see a reaction. So if we just go back even some more, let's just get back to here. Okay. What we can see now is we have this range to work with. If we look at premium and discount, you can see that we want to buy in discount up to premium. So a couple of zones that we could be interested in, maybe something like this, something up here, maybe even this extreme. Cool. There will be things along the way as well if we drop down to the 5 minute. So this sort of first range here, this is still in discount, but it can be used as a catalyst for a pullback. So we'll mark up this order block. And we'll also mark up this back. Okay, so if we're looking at this now, I'll just move back up to the 15 minute. Looking at this, we have the high, we have the low. Just bring this up a bit. We want to see price come back up into premium to continue selling down. Hopefully to break this low, enter this demand, which we saw on the left before seeing where price wants to continue. Okay. So if we're looking to take a counter trend move, which this would definitely be a counter trend move given how bearish we've been recently, so we can see there's quite a large break of structure here. Okay. Very bearish. We'd be looking to see at least a 15-minute CHOCH, so a change of character up. And we need to see liquidity being swept first. So these are my rules here. So I need to see a higher time frame mitigation. Tick, we've got that. Need to see a sweep. So let's see if we actually print a lower low. Okay, so currently, if we have a look, this low here was 71842. And this is 71840. So that swept it by 0.2 pips, but more so we've actually swept this whole demand zone, which is very important. We'll mark out this sweep. That is liquidity. And so if we're looking for a change of character, we want to see this high get taken. Okay, on a 15-minute. Knowing that we have this range here, which could be used as a catalyst for a pullback. Let's see if it's okay. We get that gets taken. Very nice big body candle as well, not just a wick. And we've created this range create or pivot, pivot demand, which will be important to note in the future. And so we have this zone to trade from. We also have this. If we drop down to the 5 minute, let's refine these zones. So I'll take these two candles for this one. I'll take this candle here. Now, obviously, it would be best if we came down all the way to the extreme, sweeping this liquidity here as well. It'll probably give us a better RR as well. But let's just see where price reacts from. So we have some liquidity under here. We've had a CHOCH to the upside, so we're currently bullish on the 15 minute, and we're looking to take that counter trend trade up to one of these previous supply zones before taking the sells down to take out this 4-hour low. So let's just go back to the 15 minute and play price along. So we first have an initial tap of this zone. Let's see if we would have actually gotten any. So we have a sweep here, very minor. I personally wouldn't be trading this. Just mark it out anyway. We've got this CHOCH. So if we were looking to continue this trade, we'd be looking to buy off of somewhere here. You can see we've had some inducement build up just above our demand zone. Oh. Inducement. Let's see if we get a tap. Depending on your broker and your spreads, don't know if that would have tapped you in. 1.5 pip stop. Something like this, we could just target the high, knowing that we still do have this zone to be taken and this extreme to trade from. Again, I personally would not be trading this. And we'll see potential areas where we could have a reversal. At this point, I'd go break even. Taking this higher. Cool. So this did actually end up playing out quite nicely. So it's 7 to 7.1 R. I personally would not have taken this trade, to be completely honest with you guys. But let's continue on and let's go back up to the 15 minute to see if our lower zone ends up getting tapped. So currently, we definitely know that demand is now in control and we have a demand chain building up, but we also have liquidity building up through these strong lows, which could be swept to come back down into the extreme. And that's something we need to have in the back of our minds when we're trading this as well. Okay. So currently we're still bullish. We're still printing higher highs, higher lows. You can see here price is sort of struggling to break the highs. And we come a bit lower. We come back down to the zone. I would not personally be looking to buy again off this, as the majority of the volume has already been used to make this move up. And we could also, if I just turn this way, we can see that, that this would start to be printing equal lows right above this zone, which will likely get taken. Yeah, so we've taken those lows. Okay, now we've come back down into this extreme. This is what I'm interested in. Drop down to the 5 minute. We've got a sweep. I believe we do. If we drop this here, yeah, just broke it. That's enough for me, given that we are coming from the extreme. Now, what we want to see is a couple of things. We could look to see, look for a flip in here, or we can actually see if we get a CHOCH as well. So this move here that did not take enough liquidity for me, what I would be looking at is the liquidity that was resting under these equal lows here. So the sweep of this, that's where I would mark as liquidity. Therefore, this is what I would need to see for a CHOCH. The other thing we could use as well is the supply to demand flip. So we can mark out our supply here. So as we can see, this supply was broken through with no hesitation at all. Smaller. and where was the demand that caused this move up. So we can mark it as this bearish candle here. D to S. So that's my demand to supply, or supply to demand in this case. So I would be looking to take an entry from here. 1.5 pips just to cover this. Now my first target, if we sort of just look up, we could be targeting these equal highs up here. Okay, should be quite conservative, to be honest. Or where I would actually be targeting is this range here, which is above the move that caused the break of structure to the left. And it's also where a lot of bearish momentum had entered, either here or here, one of these two. But given that this is going to be over 20R, I'm more than happy to just secure it at the first place. What are we looking at here? 24R, perfect. Okay, let's see if we get tagged in. Okay, we're in. Oh, so depending on your broker here would depend as to whether or not that was a stop. Probably actually wouldn't have entered there. You probably would have gotten in there. Now my rule is to secure 25% at 4R straight away. So 4R, let's just copy and paste this. For me is right there. Cool. It's a bit smaller. There we go. All right, so 25% at 4R, meaning my trade is currently running risk-free. I wouldn't move to break even just yet until we have another mitigation away from this demand zone. Let me just play price forward. So we can see here that just came back down to mitigate this pivot demand. Perfect. This is swept up here. We've continued bullish. As we can see, our target is just above. At this point, I would move the remainder of my position to break even. We knew that we'd get some sort of interaction from this supply zone. And if we keep forward, would have been very close. Let's see if we come back down to break even or if we come back up. Perfect. Okay. There we go. So 24R at 75% of the position plus 1R. So, and this was over the span of 2 hours and 4 minutes. So not bad at all. If we move back up to the 15-minute now, we can see that we've just come up into premium. So we could potentially start looking for sells at these zones. Given how much bullish momentum we've got here, I wouldn't just be setting a sell limit at any of these supply zones. I would actually be waiting for a 15-minute change of character again into the opposite direction. We can see here there's no reaction whatsoever. This actually ended up reacting in something in this range here. Still printed a higher low. Sideways price action. So here, that was just a weak break, so it's still not a change of character. Personally, I still wouldn't be really looking at this zone, especially because currently we're in fair exchange. I'd be still looking to see some momentum enter, whether it's bullish or bearish, before entering a trade off the back of this range. So we have a slight reaction off of this supply as well. And we've already wicked above this. So personally, I'd be looking to trade off the extreme now. Okay, so we've tapped into the extreme. And we need to see a 15-minute change of character to the downside. So what we can see here, if we zoom in, is we've taken liquidity above these highs. Move that caused that is here. So we'll see that broken into a CHOCH. Okay. Personally, in this case, given how corrective we've now been coming up to this supply zone, I would be able to look at this wick break as a change of character. So we could start looking for sells. And the first sort of zone I would be targeting would be here, because if we do get a reversal from here, this would therefore be a weak low, as this low failed to break this height. So we've got our change of character. If we drop down to the 5 minute, we should see a body close. Yeah, that's fine for me. And in this case, we don't really have a demand to supply flip to trade from. We do have this extreme, which we can see this as sort of inducement just before. But what I also like to do is to just take 50% of this zone. See, that would have already also tagged us in. I wouldn't be trading this if it's more than a 5 pip stop. Okay. So we can be entering here 4.3 pips. We've had our CHOCH. We've come up very correctively now, building all this trendline liquidity, all of this liquidity through here. Swept liquidity above these highs, had our change of character. What would we be targeting here? So move it up to about 10R, which is 50% of this zone. And we would, we'd also be looking at taking partials. At 4R. Mark everything up to remain consistent. So tagged in now. Price coming back up to mitigate our entry. Beautiful, look at that momentum. So after this break here, I would move to break even, as we've already mitigated our entry here. So that's been moved to break even. I've taken 25% partial at 4R. And perfect. The rest of the position as well has hit. Oh, not quite just yet. There we go. There you go. So 10R at 75%. So that's 7.5R plus 1. So that's 8.5R. And if we come back down here, we have 1R through the partial. And then if we take a calculator out for this one, 0.75 times 24, it's 18R plus 1. So 19 plus 8.5, 27.5R over 2 trades, trading just from the extremes all over the span of 1 day and 7 hours. These session times, actually, then there was an additional 7R there. Forgot about that one. Like I said, I personally wouldn't take that. That would take our total up to 34.5, but I'm not going to count it in this case because I personally would not have taken that trade. Still, 27.5R in 2 days is quite impressive. Just trading from the extremes, understanding where price is going. So at this point, now that we've failed to set a higher high here, we can take this low to be targeted. You'll see that. Yeah, so this low is now targeted. We can expect price to travel all the way down into this big pivot demand zone here. We could have actually held this trade the whole way down if we'd like. So the other thing I've currently been doing is waiting to see a CHOCH in the other direction before closing the position. So you can see we're starting to get some sort of respect of this demand. Orders are being exchanged. We can take this to be the liquidity grab, because it's not liquidity grab, but the sweep, because we have these equal lows. So if I was still holding this position, I would have my stop loss resting just above here, where it would be a CHOCH in to the upside. Do we get one? No. Upper time frame. So again, this would be the zone we'd need to break. Perfect. So never really came back up, so we can continue back down. Let's have a look at this. We can see that we've had liquidity being taken here. So the CHOCH up would be here. If price was to come up here, we could have our stop loss resting just a pip or two above. What does price do? Built up all of this internal range liquidity to be swept. Had a slight reaction. Off this demand. You can see wick up, failed to hold. Supply is still in control. Now, if we were still holding this position, as we currently did not actually get any sort of shift to the upside, I'll have a look at where the R's end up. So now we've had a sweep here, so we can just take this down. Your CHOCH would need to be here. And your stop loss would be just above. Again, nothing. We'd move this up. We'd move this down to here. Move our CHOCH to there. Stop loss here. We target this low now. We get taken out. No. And the overall target of the week low has now been hit for a total of 19.6 up. If we did drop down to the seconds, or if we did just use, see, if we had just used this, we would have actually been missed depending on the spread of your broker. And that's why I've actually just entered off 50% off this buy to sell. But again, if we had just used the seconds and waited for a CHOCH here and then a re-entry there, you can see how that perfectly tapped into there. We could have probably had an entry with a 2-pip stop loss, which would have doubled our R&R. But again, if something's at 10R, guys, just take it. We only need 2 of those trades per month with a 0.5% risk to be able to pass any challenge out there. And so why do we try to target 70R, 100R just by watching these guys on Instagram? And I'd like to see someone be able to actually consistently do that long term. All props to those guys that do it, and hopefully people can sustain to do that in the long run, but I just personally haven't seen it myself. We can see also here this range, if we were to drill in, let's see this pivot, demand, reacted off of. But again, we never really got a CHOCH. So even if we were to take that as our liquidity, would have used this as our CHOCH, and we would have stayed in the trade. So you can do this and just trail your stop loss. Personally, I'd like to just take it at the next sort of structural level that makes sense, especially given that the R&R was already so high. So yeah, I just wanted to record that for myself. I might be posting it in the group a bit later, but it's just something to go over my thought process and understand how I'm going to be managing my trades and sort of see the potentials just trading one pair. Again, that's over 25R in 2 days. Definitely don't need any more than that. But thanks, guys. That's everything I wanted to share today. Hopefully speak to you soon in the chats.